And let's take a look at this interview with Jeremy Carl.
Is tearing America apart. He joins us now. Jeremy, thanks so much for coming on.
Certain types of very polarizing racial politics beginning even to emerge in Brazil as well. So I think, I'm not worried that we're going to turn into South Africa tomorrow because of that. But given America and given our history and traditions and the great beacon of freedom and opportunity that we've been for everybody, to even take a step in that direction is just something that we should do everything that we can to hopefully avoid.
Yeah, I mean, I should say about Brazil, Brazil's had a pretty pyramid-shaped economic system for a long time, and I don't think that's a good thing. You want a middle class. But Brazil's a multiracial society, like way more than the United States. A lot of people from different ethnic groups, who intermarry and always have for hundreds of years. They haven't had, until pretty recently, like the last 10 years, hardcore American-style race politics. These have been economic arguments, which I think are fine to have, because your economic system can be changed with one piece of legislation. Your race can never be changed. So I don't understand the difference ideologically between, just ideologically, leaving aside resources and history and all that stuff, but like the ideas of like the Barack Obama Democratic Party seem identical to the ideas of the ANC or Malema in South Africa. Like, is there a difference that you see?
Well, I don't think there is. We're not yet at the kind of kill the Boer chant level of overt racism in South Africa that they have, although that we're kind of heading maybe in that direction.
There was a book last year on Amazon. It was a bestseller. It was like Eliminate Whites. I mean, that was the name of the book, written by some Indian guy. What?
It's crazy. And I think certainly there's a lot of concern that we should have about the situation that we're in right now. But I'm not necessarily of the view that it's going to be quite as bleak as it currently is in South Africa. But what I do see is that some of this rhetoric is just incredibly toxic from the Democrats, that the direction that they would like to go is really of a sort of racial caste system, and that what we're going to kind of do as a result of that is going to be something that would be very, very bleak for every American, but certainly for white Americans most of all. And again, we've got to start calling them out on this, because until, if we were letting them get away with these sorts of lies of kind of police racially targeting African Americans and kind of America's history is nothing but violence and racism, then it's going to be very, very bleak in terms of what things are going to look like in the future of this country.
And my last question, since I know you've thought about this more deeply than anyone probably, do you see this accelerating, or do you foresee, I'm saying prayers for this, a future where we're not like talking about race that much because it's not that interesting, and we're talking about the things that unite us and the ways to make the country better? Like, it does seem like this election year may be a potentially a turning point.
With the influx of artificial intelligence, you're not going to watch me on YouTube, like with a computer screen. You're going to have goggles on. These glasses will be artificial intelligence infused virtual reality. And when that happens, the race is gone. You're just an avatar. You're a dragon. You're whatever you want. You're as big as you want in an imaginary world, in virtual world. And I think the racial part of it goes away at that point.
Or an acceleration. Which do you think?
Well, I think that the left is definitely accelerating. I mean, as it becomes less and less true to speak of any sort of white systemic racism, the left is just amping up their conversation about that, their rhetoric around that. At the same time, I think there is more resistance that I just touched on, and you and others have really been in some ways at the forefront of that, which I'm very thankful for. But I kind of feel like the best case that's realistic is that, to use a kind of Cold War analogy, we move to what's called a mutually assured destruction, and that keeps us safe. So what the left has to understand is, when they use this type of racial rhetoric that is scapegoating whites, that is blaming everything on whites, that is saying white people are kind of the cause of all problems or that are going on in this country, that they need to understand that there's going to be a very painful and direct political blowback to them for doing that. And that requires us to organize on our side to say, to actually arrange that type of blowback, to make them understand their cost of that type of racist rhetoric that they're using. And then if that happens, they may say, whoa, okay, you know what? Maybe it's best that we kind of cool this off, that we don't use this type of rhetoric, that really what we want to do is sort of take race out of the public dialogue in this way. We're not going to scapegoat whites anymore because we understand that creates a politically painful scenario for us as well. But to create that sort of thing, which I think would ultimately lead to racial peace and would allow us to talk about these things that, as you note, would be much more important and things that we should all be caring about far beyond race, we need to be a credible deterrent to them. We need to show that we're not going to put up with the sort of behavior that they've been engaging in. That's why I wrote my book, The Unprotected Class, and I sort of suggest in the book that ways that we can go to get there.
Man, I couldn't agree more. I remember watching the Republican governor of New Hampshire, Chris Sununu, really kind of an awful person, but say that the problem with New Hampshire was there are too many whites in it. I remember thinking, is anyone else hearing this? You're attacking people who live there, whose ancestors have been there for 300 years. You're attacking them because of their skin color? Really? He gets reelected by Republicans. And so I hope your book increases the sanctions on people who use racist ideas for political gain, because I think it's wrong.
Well, I agree. And I appreciate having the opportunity to go on and talk about it with you, and appreciate all the work that you've done to really highlight this issue over the years. Yeah.
I mean, I'm fine, by the way. You know what I mean? It's the principle that drives me crazy.
No, but anyway. I'm great. I'm glad, Tucker, that you mentioned that, because there's one of the things that they use to kind of try to shut us up is to say, oh, it's just whining. You must be a loser. You must have a terrible life if you're worrying about that. No, I actually have a fantastic life. Personally, I have a loving family. I'm really happy, 5 kids, but I'm looking at the future of our country.
Yeah.
And I'm really concerned about the direction. And I'm concerned about my future for my kids, and not just for my kids, but for other kids of all different races in the U.S. I want them to grow up in a country of opportunity, in a land of opportunity for everybody, which was the country that I really grew up in. But I think in many ways is becoming less true for everybody now if you don't kind of check the right demographic boxes. And so that's why I wrote the book, and that's why I'm speaking out.
Amen.
I have a lot of respect for Tucker, and I forget the author's name here, both of them, for speaking out. A lot of courage, takes courage. I don't know where he gets his funding from. You're in danger of losing all your backing and all that kind of stuff. Tucker lost his job at Fox in part because of this type of stuff.
And yeah, you have your own water fountains. You got the balcony seats in the movie theater. Shut up and stop complaining, you whiner. It's like, what? It offends me as a Christian. I'll say that. Anyway, thank you so much, Jeremy. Good to see you.
Thank you so much, Tucker, for having me on.
The one piece of feedback that I would give to Tucker is for me, I'm trying to find the biblical kind of angle to a lot of these stories, and I didn't even provide it myself, but Tucker, I'm going to have to look at it and think about it from that standpoint, and Tucker didn't provide it either. But I talked a little bit about God. I don't think he mentioned it at all. I think this is, at least in the beginning, he did a little bit, but he needs to go more in depth. This is a religious, holy battle, and I would challenge Tucker Carlson. I don't know if he has interviewed Keith Woods. I don't know if he's interviewed young Nick. You need to have discussions with those people.
Middle MAGA.